is time for CA Stories Confidential.
All right, Jimmy Johnson is going into the Ring of Honor on Saturday. Thank you, Alec. Thank you, Larry. And more importantly, thank you all the Tolos for listening. Here's some of these crazy stories, fun stories from all through these years of covering sports. Jimmy's going in this Saturday, Ring of Honor, AT&T Stadium. He will become the 24th member of the Ring of Honor. 20 players, 2 executives, and now 2 head coaches. Let me start out by giving a shout out to Jimmy Johnson. I've told a number of CA stories, confidential stories about me and Jimmy Johnson. I want to give Jimmy a shout out because end of November, early December, I put out when they announced that Jimmy was going to the Ring of Honor, I think it was like November the 19th in Charlotte when the Cowboys were playing the Carolina Panthers. I put out one of my, on Chris Arnold and Mr. Chris Arnold on Twitter, I always put out Throwback Thursday picture from back in the day, mentioned how time flies. Well, Jimmy quote tweeted it. He retweeted it and quoted, and on the quote he said, "Man, that was a long time ago." And it was a picture of me and Jimmy in Tokyo, where the Cowboys were going to play the Oilers. No, it was Washington. Yeah, I think no, the Oilers. They're playing the Oilers. Yeah, they're playing the Oilers in the egg. They call it the egg. It was the Tokyo Dome. And Jimmy and I were out there and at practice, and they had some sumo wrestlers come out there and the whole 9 yards. So me and Jimmy took some pictures. But I got stories about Jimmy, but I said, you know what? Let's tell some behind the scenes story about Jimmy going in this Saturday. And I'm going to miss this, by the way. I've been to almost all these Ring of Honor ceremonies since, back since 1980, since I started covering the Cowboys and covering sports down here. But I'm going to miss this one because I had already made plans with my family to be in Las Vegas this weekend for New Year's Eve. We will be going to check out Bruno Mars. He's doing residency.
So
I'm
jealous.
checking out the MGM. And I was like, damn, Jerry. So Todd Archer, longtime beat writer, the great Todd Archer, who was on with G-Bag yesterday, or 2 days ago. Maybe it was yesterday. Yeah, it was 2 days ago. It was Wednesday. He broke down how Jimmy got in this year. And props to Charlotte Jones and Troy Aikman. They facilitated a 2-hour conversation between Jimmy and Jerry at the Star. And they said this Ring of Honor was a secret until November the 19th when Jerry and Jimmy walked into the Bank of America Stadium before the Cowboys played the Panthers in Carolina and Charlotte. And Netflix was working on a documentary about Jerry Jones. Follow them around together. 30 minutes before the kickoff, that's when Jerry announced on Fox that Jimmy was going into the Ring of Honor after 3 decades. And by the way, this game is going to be a special edition of Monday Night Football on Saturday night. Saturday night. And why this game that I'm unfortunately going to miss? Oh, it's not because it's Detroit. And it wasn't something that Jerry was going to do this summer. It was because Troy Aikman is going to be doing the broadcast with Joe Buck because it's Monday Night Football, a special edition. So Troy will be there. Remember, Troy was doing the game when Jimmy got notified he's going into the Pro Football Hall of Fame.
Yeah.
Little tears and all that stuff. Most of the Cowboys that play for Jimmy Johnson will be there. I hate I'm going to miss this. And it started making me think about the other coach that went in. And by the way, here are some of the guys that have gone in. In fact, I'm going to run down the list real quick. The first player that ever went to the Ring of Honor, do you know who that was?
Nope.
They call him Mr. Cowboy. He went to TCU.
Oh, Bob Lilly?
Bob Lilly,
Yeah.
and he's attended every ceremony since. He was the first one to go in 1975. Dandy Don Meredith went in 1976. These are all Tex Rams inductees because it was Tex's idea. Tex was the committee, and now Jerry is the committee. Don Perkins went in 76. 77, Chuck Howley went in. Mel Renfro, that was the first one I went to, 1981. Roger Staubach went in 83. I was there for that one. Then, when Jerry bought the team in 89, he knew that the Cowboy fans, you know how Cowboy fans said, Jimmy needs to be in. Jimmy needs to be. How come Jerry won't let Jimmy in? Well, back in the 1980s, Cowboy fans were like, Tex need to let Leroy Jordan in. He was the greatest linebacker in history. How come Leroy Jordan? Well, because Leroy Jordan won a contract negotiation against Tex, And Tex held him against him. So Jerry, to make the fans like him, in 1989, in October, right after he traded Herschel, he put in Leroy Jordan. And it kind of worked a little bit because fans like, yeah, Leroy Jordan's in. We still hate you, Jerry. You fired Tom Landry. So Jerry, he fired Tom Landry because he was going to bring in Jimmy Johnson. And for those who don't know, the story is this. And Jerry told me this a number of times. I want to look him in the eye. I have so much respect for Tom Landry. I didn't want to be a coward. The owner at the time, Bum Bright, said, oh, I can't stand him. He went to UT and I went to A&M, and he would never shake my hand. And Bum Bright, the Aggie, said, I'm going to fire him. Jerry, you want to buy the team? I've been meaning to fire Tom Landry for a long time. And Jerry said, no, I want to look him in the eye and say, this is not about you. I have to change the direction of the team, and I got to bring somebody I can just cuss out and say, hey, we got to do it this way, do it that way. And I have too much respect for you. But unfortunately for Jerry, he lost the public relations war because he fired Tom Landry on his favorite golf course in Austin. Did you know that part?
Mm-mm.
Yeah. And so that was all the headlines. Oh, and then when Jimmy Johnson was going to be named the head coach, how come Jimmy and Jerry were thinking about where's a good restaurant? What's a good Mexican restaurant? They went to Tom Landry's favorite restaurant. It was just bad PR for Jerry. Well, Tom didn't really care for Jerry Jones. It was just a shame. And by the way, when we fired Tom Landry, how come the city of Dallas gave Tom Landry his own parade? Gave his own parade. I found out how Tom Landry got invited or decided to be inducted into the Ring of Honor because he didn't like Jerry at all. Didn't really care for Jimmy either. I found this out from the guy who was running Kroger. You say, what? Okay, what had happened was this. So I'm covering all these Super Bowls, right? And there was back before they had the NFL honors, they would have a big commissioner's ball. And if you got a chance to go to commissioner's ball, it was the biggest Super Bowl party. It was just ridiculous, like a Roman orgy, except for the sex. It was just food everywhere, bands, all the big name people were there. And I'm there, and this is like in the early 90s. And by the way, this guy that I can't remember the name of his top of the head right now, but he was running Kroger down here. Back in the late 80s, when Landry was still the coach and Tex Schramm was still running the team, the Cowboys could not sell out games. And it was Kroger would buy up the tickets. I'm not making this up. 877-881-1053. Cowboy fans remember this from the 80s. Kroger would buy up the leftover tickets so the games would be televised because they would be blacked out if they weren't sold out. Isn't that wild?
Wow.
Jerry bought the Cowboys on the cheap because they were America's team, but people weren't even going to the games. Man. And Kroger had to step up. Well, the guy that was running Kroger, you know how they got these commercials with Dak Prescott now, and they had him with Jason Witt. Well, they got a long relationship with the Cowboys. I mean, this goes back to the 70s. Kroger. And the guy that was running Kroger, I run into him at this Super Bowl party at this commissioner's ball. And he says, hey, I got to tell you what happened with Tom Landry and Jerry Jones. I brokered the deal. I'm only bringing this up because I mentioned Todd Archer has the story about Charlotte and Troy brokering the deal to get Jimmy in. Well, the Kroger guy said, okay, I knew Jerry and I knew he was a good guy. He wasn't a bad guy. And I knew Landry. And I was trying to talk. Jerry wanted to get Landry into the Ring of Honor. And Landry wouldn't even entertain a phone call from Jerry. And so the guy from Kroger was telling me he invited Tom Landry over to his house for lunch. And he invited himself over to Tom Landry's house for lunch. Alicia, Tom's wife, was making lunch for him. And he snuck Jerry Jones over there with him. And Jerry Jones told Tom Landry face to face over lunch the reasons he wanted him in. And Jerry's a hell of a salesman, isn't he?
Yeah.
And he said to Tom Landry, he said, right now we got a divide. We got Cowboy fans who love Tom Landry, and we got Cowboy fans, going to Super Bowl, blah, 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 blah. And to get everybody together, we got to have you in the Ring of Honor to unite the fan base and to unite the players. We got former Cowboys who played under you. We got Cowboys who played under Jimmy. We got to bring everybody together, and you're the only one that can bring them together. And Tom said, let me think about it. And then he said, okay. So in 1993, November 7th, 1993, Jerry inducted Tom Landry into the Ring of Honor. Years later, after Tom, this was 6 months before he passed away, Tom Landry did my radio show in the studio. It was the last radio show he ever did before he passed away in studio. And I asked him about that, and he confirmed that's what happened. Isn't that the wildest story?
Man.
So that's how Jerry Jones talked Tom Landry into, because Tom didn't want to do it. He said, no, I don't need to be in the Ring of Honor. I mean, and by the way, he still wasn't close to Jerry, but he did it for the Cowboy fans and to bring all the Cowboys players and organizational people together.
Yeah.
And that's the CA Stories Confidential, how Tom Landry went in. And then this Saturday, don't miss it, because Jimmy Johnson becomes only the second coach to ever go in. The other two executives, Tex Schramm and Gil Brandt. Gil Brandt went in before he passed away. Tex Schramm knew he was going in, but unfortunately he passed away a couple of months before his ceremony.